You're listening to We Deepen Media.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Deepen with Christina. I'm your host, Christina Weber, founder and CEO of We Deepen, Feminine Weapon, and also a certified professional love coach and matchmaker. If you haven't lately, go to wedeepen.com and you can see all types of upcoming social and transformational experiences. If you happen to be here in Los Angeles, we've just added Deep Dance. Deep Dance is happening every Saturday at Soho Dance here in Los Angeles. It has taken the place of Five Rhythms. If you've ever done Five Rhythms for years here in Los Angeles, every Saturday morning, Kate Sheila would run this beautiful, heart-opening dance experience, and it has been missed. People have longed that one. Well, the great news is Deep Dance is now available. Go check it out. There's like 100 people every Saturday morning gathering, and you'll get that access to that program. When I'm recording this, sometimes I'll have some free passes to go check it out. It's only $25, so it doesn't really matter anyway. Sometimes I'll share a promo code as well. Also coming up is the Biohacking Conference. The 9th annual Biohacking Conference is June 22nd through the 24th, happening in Orlando, Florida, and Jet Evelith and I will be facilitating the Playful Portal. I'm here in Los Angeles right now, and I ran the Playful Portal. Both Jed and I ran the Playful Portal last night. And oh my gosh, people were just like, they had so much fun. The smiles on their faces and the joy and the delight. And if you've ever heard of clown, it's kind of like this next level above, I don't want to say above, whatever, everything's all the same, but of improv. It's improv meets emotional intelligence and really gets you into your body and seeing those around you. And Jet, who is facilitating this experience with me, is a renowned clown. She's been doing it for 20 years. She literally is channeling with me throughout the entire experience. So we're going to have that at the Biohacking Conference. Over 200 people come and play with us there. You can also at wedeepen.com, is a promo code when you register through us to save 40% on that conference. And then lastly, I'll tell you about right now, although there's other things there, so definitely go check it out, is the We Deepen Love Boat. The We Deepen Love Boat is happening in Croatia, September 23rd through the 27th. If you're currently single in this moment, we are going to be utilizing Aboutly, which is a brain assessment. We're going to scan everybody's brains before we take off on the super yacht, and we're going to match make you based upon how your brains are set up. And we'll have Francesca Gentile with us as well, who she was one of the 2 recent episodes of Deepen with Christina, I think 82 and number 30. And she is a facilitator of sacred sexuality and an expert in BDSM and kink. And she is going to be joining us on that super yacht. It's 30 people, 15 men, 15 women. So check that out. I love to have you come join us, because while I love recording this podcast, what I even enjoy most is being with you together in real life. If you do enjoy this podcast, please do like, subscribe, follow, rate it, give it 5 stars. It helps more people find it and helps me continue to record it. All right, let's get into today's episode. As I mentioned, I'm here in Los Angeles. I'm in Venice, California, and I am at the home of Mark Shapiro. Mark and I first met back in around 2017, 2018, and it was very casual. I believe I showed up at his house to record a podcast with one of his friends, and we casually met. We became Facebook friends, and ever since then, he sends me these videos, like a minute long birthday video each year. And my birthday recently passed. And as I scrolled up in my Facebook feed with just him and I could see year after year that he would send these videos. And I'm just so amazed. I could even see one year that I didn't reply and thank, and I'm like, fuck, how did I not respond and thank him? But I find it so endearing. I don't know how he has the bandwidth or the space to record all those videos. So we're going to get into that. And also why I even more admire what he does is years ago, I was seeking to find some type of like bot on my Facebook to wish everybody happy birthday from me. I have over, 4,000 friends on Facebook. I'm not as active there these days. However, I wanted to wish everybody happy birthday, but I didn't know how to find the bandwidth or the time to do it. So when I was contemplating having a robot sends them happy birthday from me, I'm like, oh, this is dumb. I can't do that. I mean, that's like fake happy birthday messages now at this point. So Mark, I'm so grateful to be having this conversation with you again after receiving that last message. I was like, I'm going to be in Los Angeles. Can I come over? And can you tell me how the hell that you find the space and the bandwidth to wish everybody a happy birthday and why you even do that? Welcome.
Thank you so much, Christina. And don't know how to respond to that. One thing I will say is that deep dance class in LA sounds amazing. I went to 5 Rhythms a bunch of times, so I'll have to check out the deep dance. That sounds awesome.
Amazing. Yes. So where did this come from? How do you even have the space? Do you do this every day for everybody that you're friends with?
So yes, I do it for everybody that I'm Facebook friends with, and I have about 3,000 Facebook friends. And, these are people from all walks of my life, whether it's someone I grew up with or someone I went to college with, someone who I, have known since I've been in LA, people. And then there's like different, levels of closeness within the relationship. Like there's people who I know really well. There's people who I maybe met once. There's people who I don't even remember where or how I met them. But I have this daily ritual of sending these personalized video messages, and I've been doing it for almost 6-7 years now.
Wow. I know you also are the founder, creator of an app called Love Bomb, which is it was inspired from, I believe, this practice that you partake in. And, when I think of love, it's this, I talk about this often on the podcast. I definitely prayed my quote unquote definition of love, but it's this process of removing layers of the ego combined with ever increasing acts of sharing. And in Kabbalah, they actually say that true giving is actually difficult. Do you ever find, is this practice hard? Because it sounds really hard, daily, like you're traveling sometimes, and I imagine too, the stickiness of the relationship, sometimes that we have conflict with people. Are you wishing them happy birthday? Like, how do you maneuver all of these social ties and your own, is it ever hard to do this practice?
Yes. Definitely. So like I said, I have about 3,000 Facebook friends. When you do the math, that averages out to about 8 birthdays a day. And, I'm a person, I have other things going on in my life besides wishing people a happy birthday. So sometimes I'll get a day or two behind, but I consistently catch up. So when you ask me the question, do I send birthday videos every day? I'd say I probably am more of an every other day person where I'm a day late on certain birthdays, but I always catch up. And I realize that birthdays are, they fall once a year. Some people put a lot of stock and care a lot about their birthdays and, are wondering who's going to reach out to them and maybe even point their finger or have some disappointment, people who we don't hear from on our birthdays. And it just is to me, what I've discovered is it's a really easy thing to do, to just take a couple seconds and send some good vibes to someone and wish them well. And what I've learned, it's not about the time that's the challenging part, it's the energy. It's those days when maybe I'm in my own shit and I don't have that energy to give, or, if I I'm not wearing clothes or something like that. Like, I have to, and you're on video. It's not like you can just send a voice note and, like have your shirt off or something like that. So, it's a daily practice that I've built, and I think that I've gotten more comfortable with it over the years. When I first started, I thought more about, how is this going to look? Does this person even want to hear from me? And maybe I'd record like a couple of the messages a few times until it felt like authentic or good, or I judge myself for not feeling like I was being authentic in particular videos. But I've kind of broken through that wall, having sent over 20,000 videos now, where I realize that like, this is a nice gesture. I'm just trying to send some good vibes. I'm not asking for anything in return. And I just, want to wish someone well on their birthday and to have a great year ahead. And, that's the intention behind it. And not only has the response been universally positive, people love, like getting a nice birthday message, but it makes me feel great too, because I'm literally tapping into the power of gratitude, which is scientifically proven through all these studies to make people happier. So it makes me happier. It brightens up my day. And that's a big reason why I do it, because it makes me feel so good to just give kindness away every single day. So days when I'm not feeling great, maybe about myself or, whatever it may be. I'm a person who has, personal challenges. And when I send these birthday videos, it reminds me, who I am, what I stand for, and definitely makes me feel better. So and the connection that I get out of it is amazing. And, it keeps people close, like a 15-second video, which is usually the videos are about 15 seconds. It's amazing what a 15-second video can do for a relationship. In this instant, like we're having this conversation because of that. So literally opportunities that wouldn't have existed come as a result of taking just a few seconds to wish someone well. So I get invited to a lot of birthday parties, which is, something I never, was never part of the intention, but that's one of the results. And then, sometimes I'll reconnect with people who I'll send the videos to. People ask me how they can help me. I'll ask people how I can help them. When I see people out and about, and like some people are people I don't know very well, like we feel connected instantly. These are the types of people who you might maybe see out and about and you'd kind of look the other way, or like, do I really know that person? Is that Mark Shapiro? I don't know. Like the 15-second birthday video, like keeps the relationship like nourished to some extent, where like there's a level of safety and closeness or familiarity that like is really nice when I'm, out and about.
You're so wealthy in social currency. Out of all, 20,000 videos, you spoke to some magic moments that happened, but can you think of like what one magic moment, one something that it was so special that happened through sending these messages?
Yeah, this is actually an easy one for me. I sadly have about 5 people who I was Facebook friends with have died over the last 6-7 years. And what's really interesting is that I think out of those 5 or 6 people, like 3 or 4 of them had actually sent videos back to me. So I have this like, now, library or whatever. I have these videos of us connecting with each other, which like without me sending a birthday video, without them sending them back, I wouldn't have that. And it's like cool to be able to have that token of a memory of connection between us. So I think that to me is probably the most special, like interesting thing, that it's just a reminder that life is precious, and it's nice to be able to have those tokens, those memories that I can watch and like can see the message that my friend Gabe from college or my friend Andrew from college, who both passed away way too young or soon. Like I have them, like videos of them speaking to me. It's like really a really cool thing. And I usually watch them on their birthdays when Facebook reminds me that it's their birthday, as I'll don't send them videos anymore, but I'll go back and I'll look at the history, and that I think that's pretty special. And it's just a reminder to me that, life is precious, and it's always worth taking that time and energy to, reach out to someone and to tell people how we feel. And, that they're seeing and what we value in them, because it's just a gift for everybody. And you also just don't know how many chances you're going to get.
That's special. That is beautiful to make sure to tell your loved ones around you, you love them, because you never know when their time is to go. I imagine too that doing this it's vulnerable to send these messages sometimes, with all the social stickiness. And, I, as a receiver of them, sometimes I feel like, oh my gosh, I owe him something back, or, when I scrolled up and I saw that there was one year I didn't reply, it was like, oh my God, I feel guilty. And I can imagine too, from when I first started, being an entrepreneur, and you connect, or you're collecting emails and you're starting to email your people. And the first time that you start emailing people, it's essentially your friends are the first people on the email list. And I remember early in my entrepreneur days, I would have some friends, I would look at the unsubscribes and I would see friends unsubscribing. I'm like, oh, Randy unsubscribed from my email list. And then I'd see someone else unsubscribe, and I'd be so hurt by those unsubscribes. I've gotten over it throughout the years and learned to not take it personally. But I imagine there's, for you and for the receiver, sometimes these energetics show up. And I can also see that people throughout this process may have tried to psychoanalyze you at times of, oh, Mark, are you doing this to be a people pleaser? So how do you unpack these, these social underlining things that are happening just through you saying happy birthday?
Well, I think it's a fascinating thing to think about, and it's complex. Like, I don't have one answer to say about that, because, with humans and social dynamics, there's usually a lot at play. Like, is there an element of people pleaser in this? Yeah, there probably is. Like, otherwise I probably wouldn't be doing this. That's one of so many different ways that, we could choose to look at it and, pick it apart and dissect it. I don't expect a message back in response. Like, that's not why I do it. Like I mentioned, like I think the primary reasons I do it is because I can, and I think it's a nice thing to do, and I feel better when I do it. And when moments of connection come out of it, they're usually quite lovely. There hasn't been, I think out of the 20,000 videos I've sent, I think I've gotten like 2 or 3. Like, this is like less than, one hand's worth, fingers worth of people who have like messaged me back something nasty. Like, one of them was like someone that was a friend's mom who wanted to do business with me at a time before, and I wasn't interested in doing business with her. So she, I think, had some sort of personal, resentment or something towards me that I think was part of her response. And then there was like one other person whose like message like seemed to be like a drunken rant kind of thing. I couldn't totally, do it. But then I do think that there probably are people out there who aren't communicating, their judgment or their assessment to me. Like, why is he sending this to me? I don't know this person. And like, he's sending me videos like 7 years in a row. Like, some people like have never responded in 7 years. And that makes me think, like, is this person even seeing this? Like, if it's someone I don't know well, I'm like, should I like unfriend them? And I do sometimes unfriend people on their birthdays. Like, like, I'm taking time and energy to send this person some love. Like, at some point, is that even worth it? So, I mean, it's one thought that goes through my head, but in terms of like the social currency and dynamics, that's not like, I'm not keeping score by any means. Like, I do this just because, like I said, I can, and I like to, and like, I know how hard it is to be a human from my own personal experience and, friends and family. Like, on any given day, like, a lot of people we know and love are suffering through something, whether it's like, a problem at work or on the home front or financially or, health wise. Like, it's just challenging to be a human. And it feels really good when people reach out to us and, show that, we're valued and care about. And that like little touch point can shift a day. And so I just believe there's so much more love to go around. And I found like a little system and ritual that's worked for me. And And I think we each have our own, ways of expressing, love and kindness and stuff like that. And I want to live in a world where there's less moments of that loneliness. And I think that there's so many missed connections every day, whether, we don't know it's someone's anniversary or, the day of mourning, maybe it's a day like the day that my dad died. Like most people don't know what day that is, but it'd feel really nice if people knew and actually reached out to me and sent me like a kind, loving note. And it wouldn't take someone that long to do that. If they actually knew that that was a day that was important to me. So there's just so many missed opportunities every single day. And it's something that I've discovered through sending the birthday videos. And I believe there's more love to go around. I want my daughter to grow up in a more loving, kind, connected world. And I'm just like doing my best to both embody that as well as to help create bridges for connection for other people so they can experience more of the joy and connectiveness that I've been fortunate to experience.
You mentioned of love, and I love your the app that you've created that was inspired by this practice, Love Bomb. Love is in the name of the app. When I was 17, my parents were going through a divorce, separating, and we were kind of in that process of like my mom and I moving out. And my dad at that time sat me on our steps of our house, and he told me that he didn't love my mom anymore. And I remember the confusion of that moment. And I was confused for years by it, because how could the man who I love most not love the woman who I love most? And they created me. This didn't make any sense. And earlier in our relationships, when we're experiencing intimate relationships, there was always this thing of, when you got into a relationship, you wanted to make sure that your new significant other didn't love their ex. Like, oh, I don't love her. I only love you. And this idea that love is limited. You talk about like there's like an infinite possibility that we have to love, and relationships. It's different with I do believe that who we spend our one-on-one time with, and that's different, and love is also expressed through attention, in like giving somebody attention. So within this practice, and I want to get into, I mentioned a little of like the Robin Dunbar number and how many people can the human brain actually handle. And then, even too, of your expansion to include this practice in your life is such a practice of love. But I imagine there could be times around that maybe you feel, or maybe people feel that, are you taking energy away from what is right there present in front of you? Because there could be a moment where you're, in your own intimate romantic relationship, that you're having a moment and you're like, oh my, I need to exit this moment and I can't go deeper with you right now because I have to go message somebody that I met when I was 15 on my Facebook page. So how do you comprehend the spaciousness and the expanding to include this level of love in your world? And I'm asking multiple questions. I'm stacking questions here. So I'll pass you the mic for a moment, because I'm also wondering, there must be a story of Mark Shapiro of where and why this came from for me. Why is this important for you to do?
I think that I love the conversation, love the questions. Everything resonates. I think I'll start like, why is this something that is important for me to do? I've always valued human connection, and just always like, the people that I've met in my life and sharing moments of connection with them, whether you're, someone in my family or, someone who I enjoy seeing out and about socially, but I never make one-on-one plans with. Like, there's just I've always just cared about the people in my life and my social connections. And I think that, that part of me, and like, I'm also like, I feel like human connection is medicine for me. And I'm someone who's tough on myself. And, on a day when I'm like, maybe it's not having the best, work day or something like that, then I go, out and see friends. Like, it's so healing. And, I crave that connection, and I always have cared about it and craved it. So I think that deep importance, or like the lens that I see through life a lot, is tied to connection and connectiveness and my own social needs. And I think that is really, like, if you really go deep, that's what fuels it. It's always been something that's been important to me. And, I think that, like, I've always was looking for ways to have my social needs met and to express myself and to, experience more of that. And so I think that these practices have organically come as a result of that. I guess that little boy who just loves to connect and wants to stay connected. In regards to presence and energy, I usually send the videos. I'm not consistent in terms of sending them and like, before I start work every single morning. It's usually like when I find time to do it. When I'm alone, generally speaking, is usually when I do it. Sometimes if it's like someone's birthday where, my partner, my daughter, like, knows this person, will send a little group video. So I usually do that because it's fun to have surprise guests in the videos, but I never let it be a distraction from being present with the person that I'm with. Now, sometimes I do, like if I'm on a hike, I'll take a second to send a video from the hike, because a cool background goes a long way. And I like, it's fun to share like a sunset with somebody. And like, I realize like, I get a kick out of like sending some of the birthday videos in like cool places. And someone once sent a birthday video to me in response, like in front of the Eiffel Tower. So like I do sometimes do videos there. But I think the one more way that I'll dissect the question is in regards to like different types of relationships. And then if we want, we can get into the Dunbar number thing. But I cast a really wide net. Like I go to Facebook every day, and like, soon the Love Bomb app will import all your Facebook birthdays and stuff in there. But I'll go to Facebook, I'll see whose birthday it is, and I'll send every single person a personalized video message. And like I said, some of these people are people I knew when I was 15 or don't know that well. And so like, this is like going out to the very far rung of level of acquaintances and people who I worked with at Showtime, 15 years ago type of thing that I happen to be Facebook friends with. And then there were like people like my grandparents, who were like, it was very close with. And I was like, okay, I'm really good at sending birthday videos every day to all these random people in my life, but like, I don't call my grandparents once a week. And so when I had the idea for like the Love Bomb app, that was a big part of it, is like, okay, yes, I can cast a really wide net, but like, how can I also ensure that I'm nourishing the relationships that are most important to me? And, I think that there's like a balance with that. And there's so much going on in our lives. There's so much that we have going on or that we could do at any moment. And oftentimes like reaching out to someone to ignite connection is not like the most obvious or easy thing to do. It takes a little energy and like, figuring out who you're going to contact and what you're going to say. And does this person even want to hear from me? Like there's a little bit of a fear of rejection that comes with like igniting connection. So it's not frictionless downhill all the time. And so I think I just, I do my best to like take, like not a meticulous, but general inventory of like, who are the people that are most important to me, and like ensuring that I am actively nourishing those relationships in a way that, feels good for, both people, realizing that, we're all on our own individual journeys. And sometimes, we're closer with some people. Sometimes we're, less close with other people. Sometimes people don't respond to me, that not even for the birthday video. Sometimes I'll text someone, they won't respond to me. Or sometimes, like I'll ask for like a business, like an introduction from someone who like, I feel like I have a close relationship with, who like seemingly, would want to do anything to support me. And like, they won't make the introduction. Like, I think relationships are just complex, and at the end of the day is just reminding myself, what I stand for, realizing that, everyone's on their own journey and you don't have to take things personally, and you can still have, connections with people, even though like they don't act or do or respond in the exact way that you hope they do.
It's so interesting to hear, because as you were speaking before, you shared around the, sometimes I'll reach out to people and they won't make, ask for an introduction, or they won't do it, or they don't respond. Prior to you saying that, I was thinking in my head, wow, Mark must have such a clean social connections. Like he knows where everybody is in almost every moment of how they're relating to him. And even though sharing of, this woman before in the past of that, you had reached out to her and she was upset about this business deal. And so she ran it back, or then you got a drunk message back. By that, I was imagining that there was all these like clean social connections. So to hear that that's not actually true to full extent, because human relating is complex. Yesterday, I did 5-MeO DMT for the first time. A friend of mine who is a practitioner of the medicine, I'm staying with her. And so I thought I'd love to experience this medicine. And one thing that came like in the medicine, I feel like I think I'm moving through this phase of being okay with people that don't like me, or even too in my story, my perceived story of people don't like me. And years ago, Feminine Weapon Day, the second one in 2015, I would host these concerts, and the first 2 years there wasn't a philanthropic initiative tied to it. It was more of let's do this big communal art show together, and it's a concert, and I'll bring a tribe of women together, and we'll do this art exhibit. The second year it was She Sleeps, and we photographed over 50 women sleeping, and then we overlaid on each of the images what sleeping meant to them, or whatever came up around sleep. And for me, I was moving through feeling shame around sleep, because I had, I'd worked in corporate America in New York City for a decade, and, they told me what time to be at work, and I had to be there. And if I was tired in the middle of the day, I would drink some coffee so I'd stay awake. But now I was working on my own, and I had shame around like anytime I would take a nap or be tired, because I didn't have to go and drink the cup of coffee to stay awake. I could just take a nap, and that came with a bunch of shame. So this was the exhibit to also support me in moving past that. And, we had a concert, 4 female vocalists performed. I did a 90-somethings panel. And I remember afterwards, there was like this, I still am craving, I'm curious to understand, and my brain there was like a rupture with a couple of the women and my energetics. And I remember one woman specifically had said to me, well, what do we all get from doing this? And I think that concert I had, for those 2 months leading up to it, I had full time was producing this. And I think the concert maybe brought in $2,000. And I used that $2,000 to pay my bills, because I just did this for, 2 months. And I felt as though when she had said that like, it was like my heart was stabbed. It was like, and I didn't know how to answer the question, because to me, it was just what do we all get from it? We just had this fun, amazing bonding experience. And look at the art that we created. And so that in response to that, and I think it's beautiful, rather than really taking that head on, I was like, well, what do we get from that? Well, I'm just going to give all the money to charity. So then for the next years, I would give up a month of work, and I would just give all the money to charity. So I did put myself, as time continued, I think in year 5, we had raised $40,000, and I was $40,000 in personal debt, to, overcome this projection onto me of like, what do we all get from it? And I could now see in this ceremony that I did yesterday, one of the other women who was part of that event that year, and I could feel these like maybe 4 women kind of pulled away from me then. And I could sense this other one was like, is part of that. And her and I have completely disconnected. And I went through this in my ceremony of almost like worshiping her for a moment, of like seeing how in her, like in this rupture of this, like, what is it reflecting to me? And why do I keep thinking about it? It's like nearly a decade later, why do I keep thinking about it? So as you were speaking, I was like, there's a moment of being like, oh my God, if I could each year had reached out to her or more honored this friendship. And I sense of my work is very social, and similar to you, I really do want everyone to feel connected. And sometimes I don't have the bandwidth to do. I love that you've created this practice, because it's, and I think we each get to figure out how to do it in our own way, and not necessarily figure it out, but in the whole, even releasing, but in lots of the transformational workshops I've done, they always stop and they're like, okay, write these letters, or, resolve these scenarios or situations. And now going through that ceremony and seeing this other woman would pop up, I even think of, is there an opportunity for me here to reach out to her? And it feels scary. And I'm like, what do I even say? And I think of the idea of a video. Video sounds too much, but maybe like a letter, to just speak to how significant, which somebody that I may have not had a conversation with for 9 years, but how from afar I've actually watched her blossom and grow, and have been so inspired by it. And she actually, at that particular event, that Feminine Weapon Day that year, she met her significant other from there. So it's even also more interesting. I'm like, maybe there's something inside of me that wants, like, I don't know, not credit per se, but like acknowledgement of, or I just want to almost more of like, why am I cast out of this love? Like, I want to share this love that was all inspired from this moment. So yeah, vulnerably, I feel like there's these, how do we like clean up our social connections? And I'm still in question mark about it, because it's personally for me of going through the ceremony, and what's coming for me is more own who I am, own Christina Weber. And maybe I can see some areas that in me not fully owning myself, because I've had multiple astrologists tell me in the past, this is over a decade ago, that most people will never understand me. And it's because I'm multifaceted and a little bit like everybody else. And now what I'm coming into in my now early 40s is more of letting people know who I am. And what I even see in you of 7 years of doing this, people now trust. There's probably people that maybe haven't replied that like rely on the consistency of your message coming out to them. So yeah, the complexity around the messiness around relating and letting it be, and also sometimes not even needing to make sense of it, and maybe not even do anything about it, but acknowledge that we're in this continue ever unfolding story. And maybe I'm being too ethereal in the moment. I'm going to stop there and just see what this inspires in you.
Thank you for sharing the story. And I think it's something that we can all relate to, in that with social dynamics, there's usually, this perception, or story we're telling ourselves about what happened, or the relationship, or what the other person's thinking. And the reality is there's usually a disconnect somewhere there, where it's like, we don't really know what narrative, like someone who you haven't spoken to in a long time. Like, what was interesting is, okay, she's had this exchange that you had a big impact on you. that you're still thinking about, and it's still inspiring you, and you made a positive reflection about you're inspired by her journey, but doesn't sound like you've told her that. And it's like, if everyone is listening puts themselves in their shoes, like if you were that person and you knew that and you didn't know that you made a big impact, positive on somebody else, wouldn't it be like a nice gift if they told you like, hey, you don't know this, but like something that happened like 9 years ago, like I still think about, and I just wanted to let you know that like I still think about it, and it's inspired me, so thank you. Like that's such a nice gift to give. And like there's so many instances that we all have in our lives, of something like this. And then the other piece that I was, heard you say is that she met her significant other at this event, which made me kind of wonder, like, why hasn't she reached out to you at all and, expressed her gratitude that you created an event and she met her person there. So I feel like there's a lot there, like, to unpack, and, which is so interesting. Like who knows what story she's telling herself. So, it's interesting. And it's like, is it worth, like creating a bridge, or are you just accepting that things are the way they are and what is? And there's infinite different ways that you could approach it. And I think it's like, if you do feel called to, speak up, if you think that would be valuable, then I say, do it. And, if not, then I say, don't do it.
What's coming through for me is like, I'm thinking if there are these connections that sometimes show up in the mind, and I don't want to say clog the mind, but they're coming through, there's something probably to do there and to release. And it doesn't need to be released with an expectation of getting something back. There was one of the women about 4 or 5 years ago I did reach out to after taking MITT. I think you took MITT, and thinking that like, oh, I'm going to call her and express and vulnerably share. And I remember in that call, she met me with like, well, you didn't send the pictures. Like I didn't get the photos after. You were going to give us photos. And I went back and sent those photos after that. But I remember feeling kind of disheartened about it. And I think I had expectations going into it. But if I can just send that message and just share, hey, from my experience, this is what I experienced. And I just wanted you to know, because there's something that you keep coming back up in my consciousness again and again, and then I can release it all. Because I've noticed that too in some messages of when I have, if going through a breakup or something of that when it's truly, and where is it coming from? Is it coming from a place of love? Is it coming from because you don't need to necessarily there's a bridge. Building the bridge is important, but doesn't need to build a bridge and being like, hey, and I want you to be my best friend again. I want, to hang out with you. It's more of like, here's how you've impacted my life, and here's how you're been in my mind. And so you are playing this significant role, and I just thought you should know.
I love that. And I think that's a great intention that sets yourself up to express and feel good, but then not be attached to what the outcome is. Cause like we can't control somebody else. And I think it's better to not have, expectations. What it made me think of is, expectations in relationship. And an example I usually like to give when I talk about this is like familial relationships. So like, I know that, my mom, my brother, my sister, that they love me dearly. Now, sometimes the support that I'm looking for them, let's say like I launched the app and when I had my podcast, like I would have my need was for people to share it out and tell people about it. And I found that like my siblings, family, didn't promote it as much as I would have liked. And, I resented them for that. And, stuff came up for me. And then, when I really think about it, I'm like, no, they love me. They just have their own ways of expressing their love for me. And it might not always look the way that I want it to look, but that doesn't mean that they don't love me or that they're not supportive. And I think that that's an interesting reminder. And I have a friend who I wanted, like, I thought he could help me out professionally. And I think the way that he liked to like support me was like, inviting me to cool events. And that was like a nice loving gesture. But even though like I thought he was maybe being a little stingy in his professional thing, that's just not the way that he was approaching, our relationship. And like, sometimes things like that just take time to look at it and accept. And then, with that, like we have to decide, like, does this relationship feel good to me? Is it worth saying something? Yes or no? I personally am like a pretty non-confrontational kind of person. I just don't really love confrontation. I never intentionally create it. And I just find that I like to kind of flow and like not have unnecessary conflict in my life. So a lot of times, like I don't do things that like when you thought about, like when you were saying, when I go through like the 3,000 people and, I send them birthday videos, I don't have beef and conflict with like, many people. Cause that's just not something that, it is worth it to me. Now, I wouldn't say like I don't speak my truth. I do. And when I do speak my truth, I usually speak from a place of, me, and I don't try not to like, piss people off and whatever, but I don't know where I'm going with this.
At the same time, so confrontation, that's interesting to not be confrontational on that one. I don't want, who wants confrontation? I don't want confrontation, but I like thoughtful discourse though. What do you think about thoughtful discourse?
Yeah, I think that it's important to be authentic for sure. I've practiced and like picked up tools that allow me to say things that are harder to say, or like when I had a podcast, to ask harder questions by just the way that I framed it and approach it. So that's usually the way that like when I have a tough conversation with like, I don't know, my developer or, something like that, where like I won't just like, express my like disappointment or anger, or, my expectations weren't met like that. I'll usually approach it in a different, more caring way. Like, we'll have a good conversation and I'll be like, hey, can I share something with you? And I'll usually ask for permission and come from a caring place, an intentional place of just speaking my truth in a caring way with the intention of, aligning, and moving forward. And I find that is very, very helpful in terms of like having hard conversations. And I think that part of it, that to me comes somewhat naturally to me. And I think part of it is like doing emotional intelligence courses and authentic relating courses and learning some of the technology and the tools that, set me up to be able to have authentic conversations where like the real feelings and needs and stuff are expressed, but not in a way that is going to create just more friction and conflict.
Yeah, I wonder too, because you kept doing this during, the time of the pandemic. The pandemic was a very tense period for a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot of judgment out there, and you should do this way, you should do it this way, you should vote this way, you shouldn't vote this way. How do you take stances on particular issues, or when it comes to, like for me in politics, I've been very vocal in recent years, which has started very vulnerable to tell people that I've never voted before. And even too, there was a month ago, I facilitated the Love and Politics panel discussion at the Independent National Convention, a political movement. And there I was on stage, guiding this conversation at a political movement in a space where people have told me throughout the years that I don't deserve to have an opinion in, because I don't participate in the way that they perceive that I should be participating in. So, and two of my, for me, I look at that, I was like, well, actually not voting is better for my work, because if I'm voting, then I, underneath of it, will essentially have some desire to persuade you in some type of way. But for me, it's more about, I want to build spaces where I don't care what political party that you're in or how you vote. I would like us to all come together in the same space. And, similar to any way of like, from a health perspective too, of like whether you choose to be vaccinated or not vaccinated, I want a space where we can all come together and be with each other. So do you find yourself also like, how do you take stances? And if so, did you find sometimes was it more sticky or more challenging to reach out during the height of the pandemic? What was that like for you?
Yeah, there's a couple different things. So one of the things I'm hearing you say is just taking a stance about political or just social issues, publicly. And the other thing is like speaking specifically to the pandemic. Was it harder? Was it, easier? And I'll answer the second question first and then kind of get into the second, and to the first question. I think it was easier during the pandemic to reach out to people because I knew that everyone was going through a tough time and, sharing a little love, and especially like early in the pandemic when it was like all about like banding together and like, for, kindness. And so I thought that was better. And I actually thought at the time that like, wow, this is the pandemic is going to change the world. And I thought like maybe for good, because, it was cool to see people band together in the first couple of weeks when the pandemic hit. And then all of a sudden, like, the pandemic was evolving. There was all the polarization. There's the George Floyd, thing. There was, all sorts of stuff. And then I'm like, you know what? Maybe like humanity isn't coming together. Maybe like this kindness thing, like maybe it's not. Like maybe like the world has like, is going to continue to have a lot of darkness. And then zooming into friendship in general, it's like, I think the pandemic showed us the importance of human connection, because everyone naturally being isolated probably experienced some form of loneliness. But then at the same time, it like reminded like us who our people are and like who our people aren't. So I think that what comes with that is like, well, like these are the people I care about. And if you're not one of these people, like I'm not going to like put any time or energy into like your existence. And so I think it's like a little bit gray in that area. And I still like, I honestly, I don't know like what the state of the world is. It's really interesting in that like the Surgeon General of the United States just this last week like put out this huge report about like this loneliness epidemic and talking about the importance of connection to our physical health and mental health, and that, disconnection and loneliness is worse than smoking, 10 cigarettes a day. Like there's like all these stats of the importance of social connection. And yet at the same time, like as I'm like approaching VCs to like raise money for an app that's all about helping people stay connected and kindness in this world of like, disconnection and social media and all the crap that like is present there. And it's like the VCs like don't seem to really care. So I feel like it's all like a loaded thing. And I think, life has light and dark, and I think we just got to do our own part. But I think going to your first question about taking stands on things, like I pick and choose, usually just based off of the level of conviction I have in the moment. If something happens, in the world, with women's rights or, gun control, like I'll usually just check in with myself and like, whether I want to share about it publicly on social media and take like a more public stand, or just like talk to the people who I'm, with or whatnot, or the level of action I take is just, I make it on a case by case basis. I do think that like standing for what we believe in and like taking action, like is kind of all we can really do. And I think that, in a world where like naturally we're not in control of very much, there's a few things that we can be in control of, I think, in this crazy universe. But I think that that's what gives life purpose and, reminds us who we are and builds momentum, is when we do take, convicted action towards the things that are important to us. With that said, I've become a much more private person in the last few years. When I had my podcast, I was sharing so openly and, vulnerably about my love life and a bunch of other stuff. And I'm just at a bit of a different place in my life now. So I don't share as much publicly as I have in the past. And when I do share, it's like tied more towards I don't know, my level of, expertise or, talking about connection and, encouraging people to acknowledge themselves, give themselves a little love, share a little love with others. That's more of like what I'm sharing publicly at this moment, but maybe that'll change. I don't know.
I love that you said maybe that'll change. Cause of course your Love Accomplice podcast, I hosted it from 2017 to 2018. I remember getting to after a year of it and feeling like I had a huge vulnerability hangover. I was like, oh my God, I've been talking about my love life for a year and I just need a break from it. I went to Burning Man and I was like, I can't do this right now. So I stopped podcasting for probably, 3 or 4 years before I came back to it with Deepen with Christina. And it is vulnerable sharing things out in the world. Sometimes I run into people and they'll tell me about episodes they listen to, or sometimes they won't even tell me what episode they listened to. And I'm like, what do they know about me? And that was an old me, and what has changed? And they only saw this one glimpse. And it is, there was, as you were speaking, I was like, oh my God, I want to be private again too. I'm not going to go private on you guys just yet. But it is of coming out. And as you can say, there's a process of that we go through of like, expand and retract and expand and retract. And I'm grateful that you expand it in this moment with me to share anything juicy that you want to let us in on, because now if anybody's listening to it at minute 55, maybe this is where they can get the juicy insight of where Mark Shapiro's life is right now in the moment.
Well, I'm a dad. I have an almost 3-year-old daughter, Willow, and she is so cool and smart and sweet and absolutely thriving. So I feel really, really grateful for that. And not too much like, juicy stuff to share here, in the moment. Like, I do my best every day. Life has been full of challenges over the last few years. So if you're going through a tough time or going through a season, sending so much love and faith your way. It's, I think that for me, as I navigate life's challenges, like, doing my best to be gentle on myself, but at the same time, like recognizing like where like my resistance patterns are and just continuing to be, encouraging and taking smart actions that, support me in expanding and moving forward. Cause I think sometimes it's the easiest thing to do is just to keep doing what you're doing. And we're creatures of habit. So that's something that I remind myself. I don't know how juicy that is, speaking pretty generally, but
your dad vibes these days.
Definitely dad vibes. I'm kind of in the place now where it's like, Willow gets like a runny nose. I'm just like, here's my shirt. I got to do like, I don't go out socially as much as I used to in the past. And, I think my social needs have like, evolved. I still like crave connection and stuff, but like, I don't get the casual invites because like Willow's with me every single weekend. So I don't get that casual. I'm not like as plugged in socially as I used to be. I think the level of connection and belonging that I crave is more towards like, other like parent friends and stuff like that, like doing activities with, other families, on the weekends. But there's one other thing I feel compelled to share about, and it's about the name Love Bomb and the term love bombing. I thought you were going to maybe bring it up, but it's something that, is like an interesting thing. And it's also kind of, I feel like one of the themes of this episode is just like, nothing is black and white. Everything's pretty complex. There's grayness in everything. So over the last few years, if you're not already familiar, there's this term called love bombing. And the concept behind love bombing, and it's become like fairly popular, like on social media, is this idea of telling somebody you love them when you don't really mean it, to manipulate them and to take advantage of someone, whether it's to get sex or whatever the manipulator or narcissist like intention is. So there's been more and more content that's like coming out about this term love bombing. And, first, I think that the fact that anyone would do that is disgusting and sad, and one of the parts of humanity that I definitely wish that didn't exist. And it like, I don't acknowledge, I don't support it in any way, shape, or form. but it makes me like sad in a way that there's like a term for like this negative, inauthentic expressions of love when there's like not the term for the actual loving side of thing, which there's so much love and kindness out there. And so, the name of the app is the name of the app, at least for now. But, I want to live in a more loving world. A lot of people don't even know that the term love bombing is a negative word. Surprisingly, it's like picking up and like, in the social culture. And if I have to change the name of the app at some point in the future because of backlash, maybe that's a good thing. But I'm going with it. And like, I stand for like, there should be a word for like sending kind gestures and love for one another. And it's just kind of like funny and kind of sad to me that like all the focus is on this negative thing. That's like, I hope that's like a rare thing then. That's like a small percentage of people are doing like this manipulative, inauthentic, expressions to take advantage of people versus like more kind, authentic gestures of love, because, there's so much more love to go around. We want it. We need it. We crave it. And so that's the world I want to live in.
Oh my God, you're right. I can't believe that this is not getting brought up until the end. So we need to, I want to go into this for a moment because this is getting into some really juicy, interesting stuff right here. If you think of like love bombing, first off, I do believe that there's only a small percentage of the world that will use the I love you to manipulate. I do think that we are love starved in some ways and also love confused. Just like I said of my father saying that he doesn't love my mom anymore. Recently, I've been spending a lot of time with my family during COVID. And one night I drilled into my dad of, how do you not love mom? Like, this makes how did you even say that? And he pretty much confessed, and I say confessed, that he actually does love my mom. And I don't believe that he was coming to it to kind of get me to shut up. It was really when I was able to reframe what love is. I think what he was saying to me at that moment was that he didn't want to be in relationship with my mom anymore, but we confused the relationship for love, and they're different aspects. Rewind to, there was when I first showed up in Los Angeles. I had lived in New York City for 12 years and I moved to LA in 2016, and I hosted a dating event here and got into a relationship with one of the guys, and I was overcoming a breakup. I was probably like 3 months out of a breakup with somebody who I was with for a year. And the guy before him, I loved him, but I never told him. And I remember thinking there was multiple times that I would be standing there and I would be staring at him, and my brain would be saying, I love you, I love you, I love you. But the words would never come out of my mouth. I can remember even specifically in some moments of saying bye to him and even put myself back in that exact frame. I can picture the frame of when the words would not come out. And so now I was in this new relationship, and we were together for a month and a half or 2 months. I had went away to New York, and when I was away, he expressed that he didn't feel that I kept in touch as much as he wanted me to be in touch. And when I arrived back, he took me to this trip into Ojai, and we were laying on the floaty in the pool, and he said, I love you. He wasn't looking at me when he said it. And my brain, because I'd just gone through that experience that I was with for somebody for like a year, that was a long distance relationship, but I loved him. I never said it. And here I was a month and a half, 2 months into this connection with this human. And he just said, I love you. And I responded with, what does that mean? And he was like, don't ask that question. I was like, and I just couldn't stop repeating it. I was like, but what does that mean? He's like, stop asking that. And I was like, what does that mean? It was like this regurgitation of this really awkward moment between us. And I walked away very confused of like, why won't he tell me what it means? Like, what does it mean that I don't know what it means. And there's even, I find myself now in this like new connection that I'm in now, fast forward 5 years later. I'm in a new connection. And last time I was with him before I went to bed, I was having that same experience where in my head, I said goodnight. And then I laid there and I was like, my brain was going, I love you. I love you. But the words weren't coming out. I'm noticing that same experience. And for this particular person, I came out of an ayahuasca iboga ceremony weeks before and expressed him and my, sharing about the experience, like, I love you. And like, I'm in love with you and you should know I'm in love with you. But I'm also then having the experience of times where I want to say it, but it's not coming out. But Mark, I can sit here easily to you and be like, I love you. Right. Like, because there's no, we're relating on not a deeper level of intimacy. I don't want to call this a surface level of intimacy, but when you're going to those other extremes where you're in this state of ecstasy and pleasure with somebody. I mean, I have many friends who will say like any sexual experience, they're like, I'm going to fall in love. Like, I'll be in love with you after, because we've just gone so intimate. Our armor has come off. And I think that's even too of like this process of removing the layers of the ego and ever increasing acts of sharing. And so there's a depth that it goes into, and the deeper that we go, it can feel more, it's more raw, and it's more, there's a greater risk inside of that experience. So the love bombing, and I have a company called Feminine Weapon. So if you imagine throughout the years, I've had many people say to me, why do you have to use the word weapon? And I don't believe if that company was not called Feminine Weapon, I don't think we'd still be in existence. If I called it Feminine Flowers, like who is going to pay attention? Who's going to remember that? Oh, there's that charity, that organization that raises money for the kids called Feminine Flowers. No, Feminine Weapon is what is like, is what we're weapons of love, I say something's battling the ills of the world through love, or weapons of consciousness and light. And if you're, think of like the weapon for the thoughts that you have and the energy you put forth. So I can see with the love bomb, there is, it is almost imperative. I can even picture a bomb going off of love that is being spread around. And so that didn't even come through my mind. And I know narcissism is a big term, but I think that some of it is really the manipulation aspect to it is probably so small. It really is people that really just want to love. And we have different capacities and different, we think about money and investing like risk tolerance. And I think there's a different risk tolerance that people have in love. But I hope you don't change the name. I hope you keep it, and it helps to reframe of what that is. And I imagine you've done a lot of probably deeper thoughts and too on the psychology of love bombing as well. Yeah, absolutely. And like, there's a juxtaposition in a name like Feminine Weapon and Love Bomb. And the reality is people only pay attention to things that there is juxtaposition. Like a social media post that like pulls you in usually is because there's some sort of juxtaposition of like, the good and the bad and everything. Like that's usually what makes things interesting. Like unlike Feminine Flowers, that sounds nice, but like nice and like sweet, like only, goes so far. Yeah. So when you say love, what does love mean to you?
Loaded question. I think love can look, so many different ways. In this moment for me, it's like a life force. It's like an energy of joy and appreciation and like peace and connection, jubilation. Those are the words that kind of come up for me. But the way that you'd say I love you to your partner is not the same way that you'd say I love you to your parents or, your siblings, not the same way you'd say it to like a friend. And then like, even like, I can say love you to an acquaintance, and I do love the acquaintance, and, like I enjoy seeing them. I always have a good time when I run into them, but like, that's not the same. It's not like the same thing as like, I love you and I want to like have family with you, or I want to sleep with you. I think that there's so many different, types of love. And I think that makes one of the ways that it's tough to express, because there's so many different meanings. And, like in that moment when, your ex said, he loved you, like he was looking the other way, and like maybe it was like a really vulnerable thing for him, and like maybe he's not like great at expressing himself. Maybe he's like never said that before. Like I've had people who like have told me that they've never said I love you to their dad. I met somebody who was like he worked at Goalcast, which is like kind of like a conscious content company, and he was like making a lot of the content, like writing the videos and stuff, and he told me he never said I love you to his dad. And a conversation we had inspired him to tell his dad I love you for the first time. So it's like even someone who's like in the space like has a tough time like expressing their love. It's like love is a challenging thing. We all want to feel it, but sometimes it's vulnerable, and it's not within the dynamics of the connection or friendship. So yeah, it's just it's it's kind of everything. I think it's the purpose of, life is to, love yourself and to love others. But, there's also, our energy and time and place where we constrict and expand, and I don't know, figuring it out every day.
Mark, thank you so much for joining me on this episode. You said Love Bomb isn't available in the App Store right now. So where do people go to interact with you? What can they expect? How can they support?
Yeah, well, hopefully this new version of the app will be coming out soon. It's looking great, and I'm very excited to share it with everybody. So, it might be out when you listen to this, depending on when you listen to the show. We're hoping to have the new version of the app in the App Store this summer. There currently is like a MVP V1 that's in the App Store, but we've completely revamped the whole experience. So part of me says just to wait till the new version comes out. But the way to connect with me, and I'd love to hear from you if this episode resonated with you, or if you want to connect with me on anything. At Are You Being Real on Instagram is my handle. Reach out to me there. You can pretty easily find me, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, whatever it is. We'd love to hear from you.
I'll link all that in the description of this podcast as well. Thank you so much, Mark. I love the work that you're doing in the world. And I'm so grateful to be one of your Facebook friends and receive those messages year after year. It's so inspiring. And thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Deepen with Christina. Again, I would love to see you in person. So go to that calendar, wedeepen.com. And if you are interested in support for your love life to expand your intimacy journey, I'm here for that as well. Okay. Bye for now. Love you.